Yeah. That first launch did take a while to get off the pad. And when that took off, I was like, wow, I can't believe it took off. So I think it's incredible that we took off twice last year. I mean, even though I've been very closely involved with the Starship program from the beginning, and actually, like, I lived out here. This is my primary residence for 3 years. But I'm still amazed that it actually got put together and it took off. I'm like, wow. The Starship is more than twice the thrust of a Saturn V. It is by far the biggest flying object ever made. And with some upgrades down the road, it'll actually be, I think, probably over 20 million pounds of thrust. And Saturn V is 7.5. So it'll end up being 3 times the thrust of Saturn V. And then between Flight 1 and 2, we made a number of massive upgrades. So there was obviously a massive upgrade to the launch pad. The water pressure is so much that if it went straight up, it would actually destroy the rocket. That's how much water pressure it is. This is a big rocket. And it will get bigger over time. So, yeah. And then we're also going to build a second tower. Yeah. So we're going to really be launching a lot, and we're going to be upgrading one tower while we launch from another tower, so 2 towers is important. There are actually so many upgrades between Flight 1 and 2 that it would actually take like hours to go through them all. But one of the biggest upgrades was going from hydraulic to electric actuation of the engines. So that actually saved a lot of mass and complexity. The electric TVC, I mean, it was just, this is one of the biggest upgrades. We also massively upgraded the heat shield. The engines themselves were massively upgraded. Literally everything on the rocket was, there might have been thousands of upgrades between Flight 1 and 2. So then let's look at Flight 2.
Attention all operators on countdown 1. This is the final go, no go for Flight 2 of Starship. Again, our T0 is at 7 a.m. Central. Raptor 1.
Go.
Raptor 2.
Go.
Stage 1.
Go.
Stage 2.
Go.
Copy, go for flight. Clock is rolling. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff.
Boost stretcher cut off. Stage separation.
Flight 2 actually almost made it to orbit. In fact, ironically, if it had had a payload, it would have made it to orbit. Because the reason that it actually didn't quite make it to orbit was we vented the liquid oxygen, and the liquid oxygen ultimately led to fire and an explosion. Because we wanted to vent the liquid oxygen because we normally wouldn't have that liquid oxygen if we had a payload. So, ironically, if it had a payload, it would have reached orbit. And so I think we've got a really good shot of reaching orbit with Flight 3, and then a rapid cadence to achieve full and rapid reusability. And I mean, kind of the mind-blowing thing is, like, there is an actual path that we are on to make life multiplanetary. Anyway, so in terms of getting there, we obviously want to accelerate the production and testing. get to a high cadence. For any given technology development, there it is. How many iterations do you have, and what is the amount of time between each iteration? So every time we launch, every time we launch or do a test, we learn something more. So increasing that cadence of launching and testing, and it's always better to sacrifice hardware rather than sacrifice time. Like time is the one true currency. It's sort of the fastest path to, as I was saying earlier, rapidly reusable, reliable rocket. So, and we've got a block, sort of a version 2 ship that will be more reliable, better performance, endurance. We've got a version 3 ship design that will stretch be even taller. Yeah, and so with flight 1, the goal was not to blow the pad up and ideally get some distance, which we did. With flight 2, it was to get past staging, so we achieved the goal of getting past staging and almost to orbit. And then flight 3, we've got, we want to get to orbit, and we want to do an in-space engine burn from the header tank and prove that we can reliably deorbit. We want to do a tipping point header domain propellant transfer. This is important for the NASA Artemis program. And we want to also demonstrate the payload door for the sort of PEZ dispenser for delivering the Starlink, the V2 non-mini, actually probably V3 technically, but the really giant satellites to orbit. The mass orbit ultimately of Starship will be, over time, I think millions of tons of payload to orbit. Compared to present day mass to orbit, it'll be more than 1,000 times. More than 1,000 times greater than mass to orbit currently. That's what it will be eventually, or it needs to be.